Good
No, I'm
afternoon,
not
good
saying,
morning,
I'm not
good
saying
evening,
anything
wherever
now.
you are.
Totally quiet.
Yeah, he's not going to say anything. I started what was about a minute or so early because Bruce was going through a really good rant to Ian and I, but now he stopped. And
You know, I don't rant, Gary. I'm always very moderate in my views and underspoken. Quietly spoken. But yeah, I was just saying, there are so many people now being duped by this whole drone delivery, air taxi situation. Politicians, regulators, all being duped. I'm going to start naming names and holding people up to account when this doesn't come to pass, and we've lost all our freedoms because these people were so stupid as to be fooled. They will be named and shamed on my wall of shame, and hopefully that will haunt them for the rest of their careers.
Which actually, the careers though, they won't last more than 12 months after. It'll be like Gatwick, where everyone vanishes a year after.
No, but they'll be moving on to the next thing, won't they?
And it will still haunt them.
They're not people that are genuinely of this trade, if you will. They're not people that have started either as a hobbyist or someone that thought it might be an idea to get into it commercially and then have expanded their viewpoints on what they fly. They're people that are just in and out of a thing, whatever the thing is, in order to make a quick buck and then be on their way again. I don't think they'll give two hoots that they've destroyed a hobby and really held back an industry. In fact, I was thinking about something else. I want to rant about that. Max saying the penny's starting to drop in the USA, mentioning the 4,000 freers. What a joke. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but we picked this up about 3 years ago or something. We did pick that up a long time ago. And also, it wasn't just the fact that it was 4,000 freers or whatever it was.
They were non-renewable at that stage.
They were non-renewable and they would disappear. But I think they won't.
They backed away from that.
They've stepped away from the disappearing trick. Yeah,
but I mean, at this time, remember the key word that FAA always uses is at this time, and they can change the rules anytime they like. If they're minor changes, they don't have to go out for an NPRM, just like network remote ID will not be implemented at this time because we don't have the technology partners to back us up. The future is clear. I was hoping that video I did would let people see that I'm not talking through a hole in my head. I've been through this process so many times before with so many different bureaucrats and regulators. The writing is on the wall. If you want to listen and get prepared for it and take action, do it. Otherwise, don't complain when all the things I've said come to pass and you've got to pay $5 every time you want to arm your drone or your model airplane.
Yes, pay to play is coming. This RID that everyone's far too late moaning about, far too late to moan about it now. This is as Bruce has said, this is the first part. And I know our audience, we are preaching to the converted or the choir or whatever the phrase is, but it's the truth of it, and it's going to make zip, zilch, zero, nada difference to flight safety.
And do you know why? Do you know why we're going to have to pay to fly? It's because these UTM systems will be built on the promise of all this drone delivery activity, all these urban air taxis. That will not come to fruition, but the governments will have invested the money in the UTMs and they need to recover the costs. So it is the hobby and the commercial drone flyers who will be charged to cover those inordinate costs that should never have gone into place.
I hate to say you're right, but I think you're right. It's terrible, isn't it? It's a real. But it seems why is it all coming to a head? What has happened to make it seem to be coming to a head in the last 2 weeks? What has happened?
Well, pennies have dropped. People who previously were aligned with the regulators and said, "Oh no, this is fine. It's all good. Don't worry about it." They're starting to realize what a mess they've got themselves into. And the whole thing is falling apart. In the UK, CAA doesn't know its ass from its elbow, and the conflicting advice and conflicting regulation, and people realizing now that, goodness me, 80 meters is beyond visual line of sight all of a sudden. Things like that are causing the community to be alienated. And in the USA, the real implications of RID are coming in, and the people, the community-based organizations are realizing, oh my God, it's not what we dreamed it would be. And so the pennies are dropping, people are realizing, and then hopefully they're going to look at it and say, well, maybe this grumpy old guy in New Zealand was right and we need to do something to sort it out. But also we're getting more pressure because we see Amazon have delivered 10 packages now, I think, with their drones, haven't they? It's a total of 10 already. and so there is, obviously these companies are putting more pressure on governments because they're probably saying behind the doors, we must get rid of these hobbyists so that we can get our drone deliveries in place so that you can benefit from all the improved productivity and the jobs and the investment we're going to be making, and you can invest in our UTM. That's probably pressure going on behind the scenes, and regulators are going to be having to line themselves with these corporations to get the benefits.
I don't know if you saw any of the videos we were referring to, Ian, but there's the flight test, and the FPV Coalition did a very good video where they sat down and discussed. They'd had a meeting with they've become the CBOs in America. They had a meeting with the FAA, and they didn't like what they heard at all, which I've I felt a little we had seen this coming.
This is not unusual. As I've said many times, when you try to do deals with the devil, they'll tell you what you want to hear and completely ignore what you said. This is it. They give you the illusion that, yes, we're listening and what you're saying has been taken into consideration and we'll be acting on the information you've given us, but then they just go ahead and do what they were going to do anyway. All of this is a diversionary tactic to hold you at arm's length until they've got their true agenda out there and in place. And this has happened with the FAA. It's happened with CAA in the UK. I mean, Matt was saying he had a meeting with CAA and it all sounded great and they were all, listening, and then the whole thing just stopped because they'd done that thing. They'd reassured him with winks and nods and yes, that's fine, and looking really concerned, and then of course just completely ignored what he said.
There was that question there was saying, do you do non-compliance or do you go for political pressure? Well, you should go for political pressure certainly first, and that should be your main target, and that's where there's been a complete failure. I mean, it was only a few weeks ago we're trying to rally a few people onto Twitter, and you consider what you've got. We've got over 3,000 commercial operators, hobbyists as well, but it's mainly focused at commercial, and you're looking at half a dozen people, literally less than 6 people that will get on Twitter and tweet, and you'll even get people that won't even do that, but instead will go to Facebook and then comment to your comment saying, could someone get involved here, and saying, well, what's the kind of like sarcastic, or what's the point? And will they listen? And it's like, yeah, they will, because the difference that I like about Twitter is it's very much real time, and the people that are on there, a lot of politicians, it's their real time, and if it's pinging away on their phone. So if you get hundreds of people, it's going ping, 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 trying to watch the TV, the meal, whatever it is.
They turn their phone off.
Well, no, politicians aren't like that first. If before they turn the phone off, they'll look and think, who's doing this? They'll have a look, they'll have a read, and then they'll actually think, and they will actually look by, the number of views, number of pings they've had, essentially, about, oh yeah, well, this is bothering people, I'd actually pay more attention to it. Where if you got 1 or 2, doesn't matter how angry people are behind the scenes or how many agree with you, unless they see that in numbers, they're always going to think, oh, actually, I can just ignore this. So I think the more that people take action, which again, great to write to an MP and so on, but a lot of people don't want to do that. See it as time consuming, still worth doing, but it's a good thing with Twitter. It's boom, it's there. It's a few characters. It's no more difficult than sending a text message. So if you're feeling angry about it, the transport minister's on there. You've got that Baroness
De Vere.
Who's like aviation. And then there's various people around the DFT and that. So they're on there. So just get pinged. And you can also hijack their posts. So when they're doing a post about something, boom, first comment on it about what you're doing about the drones. Remember I asked you about this the other day and you ignored it. And you just keep all that going on. And sooner or later, they've got a choice. They either block the entire drone community or they have to do an answer. But the people are going to have to, the ball's in your court, basically. You do something or you get ignored, and you've only got yourself to blame at the end of it. I mean, if you really cannot be bothered to write a few characters on Twitter, well, that's how much that's how much seriousness you're putting into your business and putting into the future of your business. But I can understand the other side as well. People want to, don't really want to get jumping and be at the forefront of saying something either, which I can fully understand. So, I mean, not everyone's going to be able to say something. That's just the reality of it. But it would certainly be nice if more people would be vocal. I mean, even
we've
just
tried that, though.
tweets and likes, even if you're not going to say something, it all adds. And that's not the way the world should be, but that is the way the world is. And then that's why the Twitter has been good that way. It's good for one, like the horrible things we've got in society now is obviously cancelling people and that. But this is all what it's about. It's about people saying, I'm bleeding angry about something, and I'm going to make that person or, entity know about it. So ultimately, that's what people. I think that should be a start. I mean, if you just do non-compliance, hey. How's anyone going to know you're doing non-compliant?
Yes. Well, they'll know.
We're not that much of it. To be honest, though, this is the problem. There isn't that much of it. There isn't that much of an issue anyway. People don't fly the drones. All that regulates. All being blown out of all proportion. Unless you're going to, if you're thinking we're going to do something illegal, well, then what's going to happen? You're going to be the example that the book's thrown at. So you can't really, that's not a sensible.
I disagree. I disagree, because the problem is we've seen how the system is geared against people. How many times have we gone out there and lobbied politicians and they just ignore us? Because remember, they've got a much bigger lobby in their ear. These are the corporations like Google and Amazon saying, support us and we'll give jobs and investment and prosperity and efficiencies. And so you have a responsibility to your country to work with us to do all this stuff. And then you've got a handful of scruffy little individuals who are saying, no, please don't ban our toys, don't restrict our toys. The politicians are going to go, I'm listening to Google, I'm listening to Amazon. They're the corporates with the money that are going to improve the country and improve my own personal position. These people out there with their toys, we don't care too much about it. Look at Clarkson's Farm. Did you see Clarkson's Farm Series 2? Look at how much traction you got with that council by using all the correct methods and strategies, and the system gets you nowhere. It gets you nowhere because these things are...
That's part of the point of the program, is to show that.
Yes.
And there wouldn't be the content to show without that. So, he knew full well those are the kind
they drove that,
but I've had the same situation here. It's a part of the bureaucratic processes. These people, they have systems they can use against you. They must consult, but they don't have to listen. And they tick boxes. They don't necessarily follow the spirit of it.
Things in public, it does make a difference. Because, for example, you tag the transport minister, and at the same time you tag a transport journalist. The transport journalists are all on there, the BBCs, Telegraphs, Guardians, and all that. They're all on there. They're all named. You can Google, publication, whatever it is, transport, and then you can see who they are. So you can bring them into the mix. If they see enough people being angry, they'll go, there's a story here. And then the thing that politicians do not like is they do not like to be in publications being criticised. And once you start that kind of focus, that will have more effect than if you get a newspaper. Because if you do a newspaper story where it's non-compliance, that first newspaper story is, look, drones, problem after all. And you're then walking into that.
It depends how you do it. It's 70-year-old man jailed for flying toy and garden. That's not going to earn any brownie points for the anti-drone community. And the thing is, I try and learn from previous situations in the past. Look at the situation with decriminalizing marijuana. For years and years and decades, people have lobbied to have it decriminalized. The thing that's worked is civil disobedience, is just non-compliance. The governments gave up and said, everyone's smoking it anyway, we might as well remove the criminalization element. All that lobbying was for naught. But the fact that people were ignoring the law, the government had no option but to say, well, it's obviously a stupid law. It's not being followed. We need to change that. We need to bring the law into line with the expectations of the public.
That's the CB radio argument.
Yeah, CB radio as well. It's worked in the past. We must learn from these previous experiences and not believe that, the system will save us, lobbying our politicians will save us, going through the channels. No, these channels are designed to ensure that bureaucrats and politicians can do what they want to do without being the pesky public getting too involved.
Yeah, but I think with those, especially with the CB radio, which you didn't have social media back then, so I still think the landscape has changed. So I do think you can definitely have traction through pressure, and that should be your first port of call anyway.
I don't say don't do it, but don't rely on it. Absolutely don't rely on it. Besides, I'm taking up balloons. The worst going to happen is I get shot down.
Well, the funny thing is in this, I'm just thinking, after all the trouble you go with drones, you might as well just put weather balloons up with GoPros on and just get lots of nice photos.
Hang on. Just hang on. There's been, like, I was going to like autopilots and drones, and they became a great pariah subject. And I've been into chasing weather balloons and launching Met balloons for years, and now they're coming to take that hobby as well. And there's loads. I'll show you a website.
Do you think it's all about security, Gary? Do you think the problem is that it's not about safety, it's about security? And now we've got these weather balloons out, or these spy balloons. That's probably going to do more to increase drone regulation than anything the drone community has done, because suddenly this national security thing will be on the front burner again, and we must protect the nation against spies and DJI. All the DJI drones are spying on you in your bathroom, and all this, all the rubbish that the media rolls out on such a regular basis.
That has allowed that to be to resurface, hasn't it? That's come back, and I see even the UK. I think, well, Minister, I'm not quite sure, Minister of Security, it must have been, said, "Oh, we've got to do something about these balloons." Balloons have been going around. The only people to be killed on the mainland USA in the Second World War were killed by balloon launched from Japan, and they came across. It was a family, sadly, and I want to say Ohio, but that could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. They came across the thing, and that was the end of them. It was unexploded, and they made it exploded. But there've been large balloons with payloads suspended from them flying around the world for the last 80 years. It's a given, and they've been launched by everybody. Everybody has flown them to do that. A lot of people would suggest that the UFO sightings in the 50s in America were actually exactly that. They were the experiments the Americans were launching, testing was higher altitude escape systems, dropping dummies in pressure suits and putting pressure suits up and seeing if they worked and all that sort of thing.
Oh, speaking of which, did you see that drone that doing microgravity experiments with this new drone? It just about fell off my chair with laughter. You're getting all the press coverage.
Did you notice that didn't appear in SES News? Did you notice? It's just like, God, no. No. And they got the marketing, because the shape of that rocket and all that, they could have marketed that from a completely different angle. But yeah, I just don't quite understand at the moment. Everything feels to me like, look over there, look, whatever you do, don't look over there. We don't want you to look over there. Look over here, shiny stories over here. Look over here, look over here.
You're the man behind the green curtain.
Exactly. So it is. What is going on in the last 2 weeks? Or am I just very tired? I don't know. It's one or the other. I don't know. Well, let me find this website to show you of because you can create really fantastic whisper transmitters to go underneath these balloons now.
Chris from iForce 2 did it, didn't he? He built a balloon with one of those little 2.4 things on it, and it went miles.
Yeah, well, the whisper ones, they go around the world, and apparently it's quite a hot topic at the minute. I just launched a local one. So let's get back. I can't do the searching. Quick, talk about something else while I'm doing.
Well, I've got my balloon project, which I must do the second part of. Remember, I did that black balloon, rubbish bag balloon. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put a camera on it, and let it go, and hopefully America will shoot it down.
that was to test FPV cameras, wasn't it? Back in the days when they were still.
Yeah, I can strap a 1 pound steel billet to it, and it still has less regulations than this drone here, because apparently it's safer to hoist a pound of steel into the air under a balloon and controlled airspace than it is to fly this in my garden.
Yeah, I know. It's just mad, isn't it?
And have we heard which model helicopter flyer has been charged in Dublin yet?
We know the name. I don't think we know the charges. But what was a frightening thing, and I was talking to Ian about this, is the potential size of those charges. Huge. I don't think.
Yeah, I've got these sentence here. That's what I was doing on my keyboard while we were chatting. So it's been charged under the Air Navigation and Transport Act. Now the thing that was the daft here as well was the airport going to the media going, "Oh, we don't have strict enough sentences. drone users, they can do as they please kind of thing. And it's nonsense, because here it's been charged under this existing act. So they're not to enact any new legislation. And it's stricter than what we've got over here, really. When they were trying to say, oh, in England, they're far more on the ball, they're far stricter. And it is, I think it's, sorry, I've been scrolling up and down. So the offence that he's been charged with can be punishable by up to life imprisonment, and there is no alternative for a suspended sentence or probation. So, so when they're saying there's no alternative, that makes it sound like it's if you're guilty,
mandatory sentence. Yeah,
then it's essentially you're going away. It's custodial, that you're not going to get a. I say, to be honest, a suspended sentence isn't really a slap on the wrist. So, but that isn't an alternative there. So obviously we don't know the circumstances of it, and we can't speculate on it because it's a case in progress, and they haven't put enough details out to do that anyway. So at the moment it's unknown. Obviously we see what happened at Gatwick, but this could be a completely different situation. But we know in the Gatwick incident, there was a guy that had flown a plane, as in radio control plane near Heathrow, and he got the book thrown at him just because of that ill-advised time of any time. If you're ever going to fly a model, when not to do it, that was the time not to do it.
He was in a hotel car park or something, wasn't he, at the time?
Yes,
wasn't it? And which means it would have been a shielded operation in New Zealand, totally legal.
Yeah, so it's something there in that case that wasn't malicious, but obviously an example was made of him. The weird thing here with in the Dublin matter is all the hysteria was on the bank holiday weekend, and this is nothing to do with the bank holiday weekend. This is even further back in time, so it's going back 3 or 4 weeks, which is it's all just very odd. So there's still no. This is an airport that's saying we have got counter UAS, and that they're fully aware of what's going on around their airport, and they weren't arrested at the time, and they're still not arrested. Nonsense. It's that bit of it. There just hasn't been any clarity on it, and to be honest, there ought to be some transparency, because again, it's still left it open that could have all been a mistake. So good and well that they've got something they feel that's significant enough further back in time, but it still doesn't address what's going on there. Now, Gary has actually put on Twitter, and I think you commented on it, Bruce, so you'd have probably seen it. But it's audio from what sounds a genuinely credible drone incursion over Dublin Airport for 3 or 4 years ago. So you've got a full audio there, and you hear the events unfold. So it kind of explains why an airport has to close for as long as it does, because I think they go out onto the airfield to check and so on. So there's that kind of processes they were going through, but at the same time that also revealed the fact that if 3 or 4 years ago you're doing visual sightings, how are we in the present day and there isn't a whole better mechanism? But when you have a look on Google Earth at the airport, because what you don't really appreciate, because we'd not fully appreciated, they do have a bit more of a challenge with the airport in that it has got like a main road that runs parallel with the runway. So in theory, you could get quite close to that airport with a drone in your boot and then take it out. So it's not like you've got to fly in from miles away and you've got a bit more notification of a drone coming in, but it still doesn't explain things, because the counter drone system, especially when they're saying we've got the one which presumably must be aeroscope, that tells you the moment it's turned on, that still means that if you've got that out of a car close by and you've powered it on, they know about it immediately. So it's like, why isn't somebody just running out of the airport, pair of ankles, boom on your hands? So there's just all those
bit of education, out the airport, bit of education. I said it last week. Come on, look, mate, you can't fly here. Not straight into handcuffs, but look, you can't fly here. Genuine mistake, all right. And next time we will put you in handcuffs.
What I can't understand is I thought drone registration was supposed to stop all this carry on.
Yeah, well, it doesn't. But that's well, you know, I know obviously you say that sarcastically, because it's but that the thing is, you've got all the politicians there. That was the first thing, and then again, I think even the airport was putting this out as well. The problem is because we haven't got all the drone users registered. It's nonsense. It's nothing to do with someone's registered or not. It's just a fact of whether you're willing to comply with the law or not, and some of it again could be education. Because Gary made a good point again. With that being 3 or 4 years back in time, that just and if you have got those challenges of a road nearby, residential so close by, is you educate the local community. You do those tasks of. So it should be like twofold. It's educate the community. Even Gary made a good point when we were chatting about this, because I think Aeroscope, it goes out for more than 5 kilometers, especially if you've got the proper install, which you should have at an airport. I think that's 10 kilometers or even more. All that'll be on Google anyway. Again, and this annoys me. It's national security in my ass. It's all that is published for anybody to see. So, but anyway, all they needed to do is look at any drone that's even going well out of the airport, stuff that's 5-10 miles, and say, let's do an exercise with the police over, maybe a couple of weeks or a month period. And you actually sent officers out to all of those, and you pull people's houses that are even out and said, look, we know you're not breaking law what you're doing now, but just be aware, you're picked up by the airport, and with your drone, with the distance it could do, be aware that you shouldn't be doing anything naughty with it. And just do that communication in a friendly manner and instruct people so that the word gets out that, the airport savvy, they know what you're doing. And that would also
get your AMA, BMFA, whatever the Irish Model Association is in, and say, come down to the tower, have a visit, have a cup of coffee with us, come down as a club, and we'll show you what happens and what the problem is.
It's not clubs that are the problem, though, is it? Clubs aren't the problem. They already know. People in clubs already know these things.
No, but they can be part of the education piece, because they'll know someone.
Although, having said that,
I know they're not the problem. I know they're not the problem.
Most drone flyers aren't club oriented. They have a camera. It's not a drone. It's a camera that flies. That's it. They don't care about flying and anything like that. It's just a tool. So that becomes a difficult thing. But as I say, registration was supposed to fix this. It didn't. Okay. But then again, the tests, the DMARAs and things, that should have fixed this. But hang on, that didn't. So maybe remote ID will fix this. You're right.
Yeah, I know. And Johnny's saying about his closest AMA field now is 40 miles away. But Johnny, there's no guarantee, I'm sorry to break it to you, that even the AMA field 40 miles away is going to get its freer. And if that AMA field 40 miles, okay, it seems like a done deal for them. But if they don't get that freer, then you're not flying there either. And I think, they made a great point on that flight test video that they're taking 4 months to process each one or something like that. And it's due in September. So unless you've got your paperwork in right now, and it's going to get cleared, well, what are we in? More than 4 months of September, aren't we? But how many are actually going to get in there? How many are
and also what sort of workload are they expecting? If they're only expecting 4,000 freers and they get 70,000 submitted, it's going to take a lot more than 4 months.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so what are they going to say? I can't remember. For argument's sake, we'll say September the 1st. It's not September the 1st. Is it the 21st?
It's 16th of September. They're going to say, we've decided to extend the deadline to the 12th, the 16th of December, like they did with the first part of the...
there we are.
They'll push it
Shall
out.
I write it now? Shall I put it in now?
It's going to have to happen. It is absolutely crazy, but a pay to fly will fix it. Pay to fly, because you won't be able to even take off until you've paid, and therefore, if you go to the airport and you want to fly your drone, you have to pay extra to fly in the airport.
And there'll be no problem. Yeah, and you will. Yes, exactly. And in Dublin, you'll just pay the extra tenner to fly from your garden near the airport. Your extra facilitation fee for being right there. Yeah, it's just it. Sadly, California as a freer. Johnny, unfortunately not. Johnny's a flying velos.
So this raises... Well, it raises
Go
the
on,
issue.
mate.
How do we deal with this now? So there's a choice of non-compliance, and you can go and lobby your politicians. And a lot of people are saying, "Oh, we just go sub 250." Sub 250 craft are very capable, but you can see that given the Mini 2,
100
Mini
grams.
3 are now the most popular drones in the world, and people, if someone flies it near an airport, the sub 250 exemption's gone. Everything will have to be registered. I'll have to register my little Mobula 6 because it's a drone. So that exemption is transient at best.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at Japan's 100 and is it 100, 117 or 150?
Well, they've gone down
like
to 200 grams now.
200 grams, is it? Somewhere's 100. I know somewhere's 100.
And the daft thing they had to do there was just making the battery capacity smaller, wasn't it? So you still got the same drone. You're just having to change batteries more often. It just shows what the nonsense it all is.
Right.
And I've said it before, the thing that really annoys me with the 249 grams is to get the drones into that, they're taking out the redundant sensors, so you're making less safe drones to meet it. If it had been what should have happened at the FAA meeting back when this was all decided, which Alpa was fine with, which was somewhere about 499, I think we would have ended up in a really common sense place, because you could have a small drone, safe drone with all your redundant sensors, and just none of this faff we find ourselves in these days.
Strangely, I don't think there's any round the world balloons in the northern hemisphere. Oh no, here's one. There's one. There's a northern hemisphere. There's one for them to shoot down.
Quick shoot down. Yep.
If only there was some effective way of tracking these things as they went through around the world. I mean, it would be if only there was some sort of web-based browser that allow you to see.
We can but hope, eh?
Yeah, one day this technology will arrive. I'm sure of it. And these ones, they're all carrying Whisper. Whisper's an amazing transmission standard, much like LoRa, really. But you can hear it. Let's stop sharing this one. I'll show you.
What these balloons mainly doing then? Because we're the weather balloons. Is it all for the monitoring, or is there other stuff that commonly goes on with these?
It's like me sending up things. This is what the transmitters look like. It's a long wire antenna for the HF Whisper. And yeah, it's people like this. It's a thing called a hobby. They used to be popular back in the 70s, 80s, 60s, 1850s, but hobbies now are wanting to be banned. And they're Mylar balloons. That's what these ones look like. That's all they are. And they'll go right around the world with $100.
Can you get them with happy birthday on the side? I'd like one.
You can use the foil, the happy birthday ones, but they're not. They're too heavy, really. But yeah, as I say, first they came from a hobby drones, now model aircraft. Now they're coming from a hobby chucking balloons up. It's not cool. So yeah, that's when
football gets banned. You start. Well, that's when people will kick up with if they can't kick a football above 10 feet because it's airspace.
Yeah, it's just nuts. So obviously that's the hobby end of stuff, and people have to go with the minimum amount of spec gear to make it affordable. That's about $100 for those transmitters. So it is happy old fart day, Bruce. It is affordable now. But yeah, look at Google Loon. 2 years ago, when Loon was flying, they had 60 balloons any place in the world, all over the world at any given time. So why are we so shocked, horrid now? I don't get it. I don't get it.
The thing, isn't it? It's people don't know about these things commonly, because obviously I didn't know there was all these balloons going around or the purpose for them. And then you can put a scare story around it, can't you? Because it's like people didn't know about drones, so they're easy to target. People don't know about balloons, so big scary balloons floating by with clowns underneath. You know,
is it Richard that's scared of clowns? Someone's scared of clowns. Is it Richard? Was it him?
Is it? Yeah, it was, wasn't it? I think it was. Hobbies are out of control. Cowboy stuff. Yeah, there we are. They are, aren't they?
But actually, Josh from Flight Test put it very clear, and I've said it myself. I think we've all said it. Is in 10 years' time, when they're looking for new talent to come into aviation, there will be none.
Oh, look out. Look out. Here's one of those high altitude people coming along right now. Here's one of the big. This will be the head of flight training for. I can't remember what your company's called now, Rich. And I use the I use that they're in some sort of legal battle. But that high altitude airspace above flight level 660 never meant anything to anyone, just as the first 500 feet never meant anything to anyone. But now there's Richard with the very excellent Zephyr system flying up there, the HAP system, and a few others, but let's be honest, not none are really doing it. But these balloons are high altitude persistent systems. Yeah, that's it. Whoever he works for now, it's got letters in it. But it's both of those spaces, what I was trying to say, were spaces nobody was interested in now. Suddenly they seem to have commercial value, and so there's airspace grabs, land airspace grabs left, right, and center, and we are collateral damage in all of this, I think. And as you were saying, and Richard is a person that needs to employ those aerospace graduates and pilots to operate those machines in the future. But where are they going to come from if they're not crashing model airplanes into the side of their school? Yeah, the U2 SR-71X1, those were the only people that used to use that airspace. You're exactly right, SF Drone School. And when we used to talk to the SR-71s, we used to think we were dealing with spacemen. You know, we were very excited to talk to them. But yeah, Froby Zephyr, real concern for those untracked. Are they untracked? Are they really untracked, Rich? I don't know. I think people know where they are. What do you think that means? You can
Actually, that's a really good.
Stop me ranting now.
Johnny's got a really good point, because I believe that if they're going to regulate us into grassy fields, then those grassy fields have to be far less regulated than average airspace. We should have areas where we can go to 10,000 feet if we want, and it's an exclusion area for manned aviation, where we can fly beyond visual line of sight so long as we stay within the boundaries of that danger area, and give us those freedoms. If you're going to take freedoms away, give them back to us with steroids in areas where we can do things that are currently illegal anywhere. Give us those areas. We might be more willing to accept some restrictions if we can go somewhere and lose all those restrictions.
Young technical talent, but I'm sure, Rich, those high altitude stuff, if it really was a worry, it wouldn't be too much of work to create a sensor network to sniff out RF. That's because they've got to be sending RF somewhere if they are spying. So if they
could be a box of carrier pigeons on board, homing pigeons.
There could be.
Yeah, with little masks, little oxygen masks for the first 60,000 feet.
That's why the thing's so big, because of all the little helmets they've got on and all that sort of stuff.
It was a giant aviary.
There weren't that many sophisticated sensors on it, and the ones with the cameras on that we saw from the First and Second World War. So look, we're chugging through things. Oh yeah, I know what I wanted to almost speak to this is. And it speaks to the education piece almost, is that really the way that stuff has been held back as we watch these dreadful pictures coming out of Turkey and the earthquake, is there really could have been, and there are credible delivery drone systems out there now that will take 4, 5, 10, 50 kilos quite easily. So the system is there, or the aircraft is there, the airframe, the A part of things, but the system part of it, i.e. how you operate and the training of crews and being able to go and deploy and having trained for that situation, just hasn't happened because they've been held back. Businesses have been contained and held back and have not moved forward. So we could have some really credible rescue robotics going on if people had been a bit more forethought. Last night, I'm so tired because last night I basically didn't sleep because they've got a song about the rains down in Africa. Well, last night, my word, it rained, and then it rained hard again, and then it rained hard again. So it used to be when I was a youngster, when you were a child.
Had a cyclone at your doorstep for 3 days. I'm going to get my drone out later to try and find my fence.
No,
it was just out here when I went to sleep, and when I woke up, it wasn't there anymore.
Well, Yeah. So I was going to say, like in a thunderstorm when you're younger, you go, yo, make more noise, well, more lightning, make it more exciting. Now I just stay up thinking, which bit of my house, like your fence, where is my fence going to be? What's the roof going to be doing? What's going to leak?
On the upside, I did gain a trampoline.
Oh, there you go.
I can sympathise with that. I've had my shed roof ripped in a really awkward position. It hasn't been done properly by the guy that did it originally. So I'm now teaching myself how to fix rubber roof. But I know there's 40, 50 mile of winds coming later on in the week. I ain't got time to do it in that. So I've just got lots of bricks down, trying to hold it down. So I fully sympathise with that. Just waiting for damage. Dealing with it afterwards.
That's why we were very lucky, and we had touched some wood. We were very, very lucky. But a lot of people around here haven't been flooded. And Fast with Esma is greater. Now, Richard has commanded the longest, it's been in the loop for the longest flight ever of a UAS, the Zephyr Zulu. Oh, I'm going to get it wrong. I think it was Zulu 82, which, of course, cheered me up no end because I live in the Zulu kingdom. So that's very cool. So for this voice, this is a voice of people that really do need things to change.
I'm talking about the point you've made about regulation and not being where we need to be. Part of that frustrated me with the press story we had in the UK this week. We seem to have there's definitely a concerted effort at the moment to put out negative press, and it's coming.
Yeah.
There's a particular journalist at the Telegraph that's putting these out. So, and is clearly connected with somebody that's behind this, wanting to put out scare stories, to obviously some sort of advantage for themselves in doing this. But the story, it's a regurgitated story anyway, but they've gone to the trouble of sending freedom of information requests to the police, asking what make are your drones, which we all know anyway. You don't need to do a Freedom of Information Act to know they're going to be DJI drones. But we're in a situation, really, when you think about it, with all the regulation we've had, all the scare stories about drones, the way the entire DFT has spoken about drones, it doesn't surprise me. Why would anybody in the UK want to get into manufacturing drones when you don't know if you'll be able to sell the things the following year, because you don't know what what weight is going to be permissible, what the next thing people are getting scared and alarmed about, to say, it's the drone's fine if it doesn't have a camera on. If it has a camera on, suddenly it's a spying device. And whatever other nonsense you want to just frame in the context of a drone, it would be absolutely terrifying to try and actually manufacture drones, even though I don't think realistically that'd be something we'd be doing in the UK. But if you think about in the 80s with the computer boom, when you had your Sinclairs and your Amstrads, that if there had been a real positive spin on drones. So if you think about it, really, back then it was the BBC doing the BBC Micro. If you had like a BBC education thing and they were building drones, suddenly that would have been a boom thing, and we'd be manufacturing them. But we've had the opposite. So I'm not surprised that we don't have any of that facility, and I don't see that we would, because if you think about it, you could even manufacture around Arduino. So you've got your flight controller and the software, and you could just be building airframes, and you could still be
flight controller,
having a manufacturing process going on in the UK. But it's never been a reality because we've never treated drones as a technology and as a positive and something that kids should be learning about. But if we had it done, then maybe our police forces wouldn't be having to fly Chinese technology because it'd be an alternative. But the reality is we put ourselves in a situation where DJI is the only game. You've got a few alternatives, you might say Parrot, but there isn't the functionality. Your police forces are specifically under pressure for costs. So you can't go out and say, well, we're buying this drone that's costing 4-5 times as much. Sell off, Philip. So you can't do 4 or 5 times as much. and get the same functionality, because the taxpayer is going to say, where's my value for money? So someone would have to prove that there's an issue with DJI, and it isn't hard to do. And this is the thing that frustrates me a bit as well. If you want to make a big song and dance about DJI, plug the thing up, connect up sniffing whatever on your network, whether it's software, hardware, whatever, analyze the network traffic that's going backwards and forwards, and you can see for a fact if it's transmitting to China, if it's transmitting image data, if it's transmitting anything else. A lot of my work is actually in network for other purposes, but in reverse engineering systems. So I'm looking at network traffic, so you can actually see what's going on. You can see what APIs are being pinged and what information's going backwards and forwards. So if someone actually is going to put that as an argument, it wouldn't be hard to prove. And the fact that nobody has said here is a DJI drone porting data backwards and forwards makes me think actually this is just a xenophobic narrative that's still going on. Now, I know Kevin did a bit with getting stuff off the server, but there was no evidence, and I saw that, of DJI transmitting stuff. It was back in the days when you to send physical hard copies of stuff, well, like, scans of it, like your passport and that to DJI, because you're a commercial operator, to get an unlock. It was that kind of stuff that was sat on there. So there was no evidence that I've ever seen of, oh, well, this drone's been flying here in the UK and it's transmitting a nuclear power plant image back. And until you do that, you're making up nothing other than a scare-mongering narrative. And as I've said before,
I read the Daily Mail. I know that all these drones are just listening out for that go signal, which will turn them into a swarm of autonomous things that will slaughter bots. Have you not seen that video, Slaughter Bots? Everyone quotes that to me. Oh, but have you seen that? They've got these little drones, and these can fly around. They can kill you, shoot you in the head. This is the problem we've got with public perception.
Philip's talking nonsense. I saw Kevin's stuff at the time. I chatted to him about it. There is nothing on there that has shown a transmission from the drone itself.
Don't have to drones. They're listening. They're nascent. They're just quiescent until they get the signal. They don't have to listen. They don't have to send. Boy, you didn't watch that video.
But Philip's an engineer, so if he's so confident, Philip, there's your challenge for you. Next month, get us the evidence. Prove it. Show us a current model DJI transmitting data back when it's set not to transmit any data.
Anyway, your cameras are all reporting back to China. I've seen your garden cameras. They're all from the Chinese manufacturer. They'll be looking at those hedgehogs.
Yeah, I've got Hikvision cameras where the same claim is being made against them. So in Beijing at the moment, they're watching the squirrels in my garden running around burying nuts, and they're having a fantastic time about it, and nobody's offended by it. I'm not bothered that the Chinese government are watching the squirrels. The squirrels aren't bothered. I've asked them. So
have you asked them? What due diligence have you done there? You glibly say you've asked them and they're down with it, but
as long as you're pointing out the nuts that are keeping us living through winter, we don't care who watches it.
Is that what's happening? Yeah. Has he got lots of buried nuts from the summer? Have you seen that?
Oh, they just dig up the whole garden wherever they can to bury nuts. I don't understand why they don't just scoff them, because they know we're going to put more out there by now. So they're not quite that smart. In fact, we have got clever squirrels and stupid ones. You've got ones that'll actually open up the feeder and eat them, and other ones that'll actually try and eat their way through the feeder to get to the nuts. So, there's a bit of analogy there with DJI pilots. You've got some that are smart about them, some that aren't quite so smart.
Trying to eat their way through the feeder.
He's saying DJI pilots are nuts.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them buried in his garden right now, apparently.
Yeah. Mesh networks? No, I don't think they're a mesh network.
We could cook up such a cool
conspiracy. I see why you mentioned the Autel, the fabulous, or maybe they have got that new Autel mesh network on them. Maybe they have. The
only thing got me thinking with balloons now is if I was in America, I'd just be wanting to launch loads of balloons with pinging out random drone IDs.
Remote ID transmitters.
Remote ID thing.
Well, Kevin, again, at Kevin at / on the Twitters, Kevin does have, what does he call it? I can't remember what he calls it. He does have exactly that, to lift under a balloon, under a toy balloons, a spoofing device.
Oh, that's quite funny. Just launch, if in America they could just launch loads of those. problem over.
Yeah, it could be a much lower level than. Yeah, well, that's well above my pay grade. All of those words, all of them, every one of them. Yeah, it's what do I want to say? It seems to be a strange world this week. Now, for those that don't know it, hiding in the comments here is Philip Rouse of Cube Pilot fame, and other things.
Infamy.
They've all got it. Infamy.
You might as well just tell him to get on the show. There's a space there.
There's a space.
You're just waiting for him to come on.
Oh yeah, well, to give him some abuse, but I mean, he's got, he's got autopilots all over the world, so his business is kind of at the whim of the regulator as well, and
yes. Someone's asked, when am I going to launch my Sense and Avoid kit? It's kind of been made redundant by all the Sense and Avoid as such, but the ADSB alarm, it's just waiting for some Raspberry Pis. They're still making them, but they're not putting them in shops. They're sending them all to the industrial users, apparently.
Yeah, no, they're definitely not. And lots of people are filling the gap, aren't they? They're bringing out the orange ones and various other different names to jump in there. I think they might be doing themselves no favors at all.
The problem with the knockoffs, though, is you never know how long they're going to be around if you base something on them and a slight incompatibility.
Yeah.
So much easier. I mean, just make some more Raspberry Pis, guys. It must be due for a 5 now.
They've said they're not going to release one next year or this year. I'm sending you the link, Philip, if you'd like to join. You might not want to join. He's probably watching movies in his cinema at the bottom of where his office is. He's got a cinema. Beagle boards, yeah, there's a good one, Barton says. Yeah, regulator makes for sleepless nights. Yeah, absolutely. So, if he's not going to join, what else have we got to say? Just the three of us going once.
Just trying to think what other news has been going about drones this week, because the only thing that struck me is the additional press hysteria, which, just going back for that for a second, although it's DJI that's being mentioned, it's not being, it isn't just this is a DJI story. It's really trying to be just another drone scare story. That's what it's about. It's just an easy way for them to pin it on someone where you couldn't get away with that with any other brand. So to me, it's a non-story, because we all know that it's been the situation for many, many years, and no one's really interested in doing anything about it.
Absolutely. Now, funny, Rev, you say, why don't you invite a regulator? We have. Oh, look out. Now we're in trouble. Now Ian, you've got to behave now.
Yeah. I always behave.
And he's even got the orange shirt on. So
the Dutch football colours, Look at that.
Oh, he's at work as well.
Oh no, he's joined. Oh no.
Oh,
which one is that? Is that the one that Kevin's mercilessly hacked? It is the Unitree one. Did you get the special Kevin discount, or did you pay full price for yours?
Well, Cube Pilot paid
these
full
are
price for it.
So do they going after you?
Oh, I thought Ian froze.
Well,
yeah, my connection's a bit.
Yeah, I know.
I'm sorry, Ian. It was just too tempting to pick on you. It's too much fun.
But I think there is quite a bit of evidence. I'm not sure why Ian's not sure there's some evidence.
There's a lot. I think the problem is the evidence that is there is not exactly public anymore. It's moved to a higher level of investigation.
And there may or may not be a unit in a well, and we're keeping going with the colonial thing, aren't we? For a squishy, you mentioned that earlier. Yes, wow. This is the colonial.
It's the Kiwis on the left on my screen, and the pommy sounding people on the right. So
yeah. And we're mostly, but three of us are in the southern hemisphere as well.
Yeah, exactly.
But the regulator thing, yes, we've invited New Zealand regulators, English regulators, I think we've invited some people from the FAA. I'm sure we have. And
I've got a
next week,
7805 here somewhere we can interview. Maybe in the LM319K. I'm not sure.
The chat from Assure is coming next week. I need to remember to say that. I've just remembered to say that. So we're going to hear about testing the 21st. Yeah, that's next week. So colony stream, stream. Yeah. So that will be happening.
The Assure thing, just to jump in, I think that's huge. And for anyone that's watching that's regular, that's really one to watch and to tell people to watch, because if you're, whether it doesn't really matter which country you're in, whether it's the UK, America, where Assure's work is utilised, or further afield, I was surprised how few people know about their work. But that's what every commercial community and even hobby communities should be pushing for from their regulators, saying, if you're going to give us these rules around drones that you're saying are based on safety and based on this premise or that premise, prove it. And Assure UAS will do that. So they've got studies they've done already. They've got ones that are in the pipeline. A particularly cool one, and maybe Philip, it might be worth you even being on for this. I think it's really going to be really interesting. Is they're going to, for the first time of any proper experiment, they're going to fire a drone into an airliner engine, and as my understanding of it, and hopefully they can clarify next week, but it's what they've got is that they've got a computer model of an engine and a drone, which has been using to date to say, this is what we think will happen. And then they're going to use the same drone, same engine, do an impact, and they can say, is our model entirely accurate? And if it's not, is then tweak it based on what happens. And then it saves the expense, because it just wouldn't be practical every new drone that comes out, fire it into an airliner engine. And that was part of the flaw as well with the really naff UK study. They did. I was reading about this, funnily enough, this week because it was. I wanted to go back to that story and put it back out again on Twitter, looking back on it with hindsight, and it was worse than I'd even remembered, because these were used. It sounded like they were like used windshields that got anyway. They weren't mounted into like a proper cockpit. They were. I think it was like just partially. And then they'd even pre-fired stuff at them. So it wasn't even the first impact. And then they'd obviously made stuff that wasn't a drone. And they'd even used balsa wood as part of the component, which wasn't even mentioned on the report. So it was actually far worse than we knew. So going back to Assure, this is doing credible science and using an actual drone. And then, as I say, it wouldn't be practical to fire them all the time. So the idea is, by proving this model and getting it right, they can then virtually just take any model of drone, fire it into the engine, and come away and say, well, we've got actually a very credible, close result to what would happen. So you could say, well, what would happen if a Spire goes in? What happens if a Mavic goes in? And they should be able to prove that. So that's my understanding of the theory behind it. And that would be really cool. And that takes away a lot of this. It just takes away all the nonsense about debating, because that's the thing that happened again with Dublin. People were saying, oh, well, if someone goes on there with a Mavic, take down an airliner, which we know is just utter tribe. But it's better if you could not only think or not only know that's tribe, but you can also say, and here's the study, here's the evidence, here's the document, read it yourself. Unfortunately, a lot of people who can't read it themselves see they're published before they'll even accept, and then won't even look at the stuff that's been done already. It's always got to be, and it's got to be this mod.
Yeah, so in that one with the, we had a few responses on the Dublin thing where people have made the comment that, you know, aviation is a bit more paranoid. If you can't prove it won't destroy an aeroplane, of course they're going to regulate against it. And it's sort of true. I mean, you know, the old argument of why can't we have a mobile phone when we're talking on an aeroplane? Oh, it'll interfere with navigation equipment. I'm sorry, if navigation equipment is that fragile that they haven't actually hardened it from antennas that are inside a Faraday cage when the antenna for the radio gear is on the outside of the Faraday cage. Like, the reasoning for it is, but maybe there's a problem, let's be super paranoid. And that's aviation. That's what they do. So that is sort of right. And so when Assure has a simulation, they go, it's a simulation, and therefore people go, I don't believe that. So yes, I want to see a drone go through an engine of an appropriate size, not a carbon fiber 4 kilo spear. But even that, I think it would probably do damage to the engine. But I'm not expecting it to breach its containment any more so than a normal impact would. Does that mean that there's no circumstance a drone going through an engine would be a catastrophic failure? No, it doesn't. I mean, look at Qantas's A380, which was nearly the world's biggest aviation disaster. Thankfully, didn't end up that way with the engine exploding and taking out half the wing. Things can go wrong in aviation that are catastrophic, but that can happen without the drone there. We look at the Hudson River situation. That was a flock of geese. Like, if we're dealing with flying through a swarming light show where they're using 8 kilo drones for their light show, which clearly you wouldn't, then fair enough, a double engine takeout and blah, 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 that could be really bad. But a single engine takeout is extremely expensive. Butts, the heads are going to roll, butts are going to get kicked. Someone's going to be in debt for the rest of their life and go bankrupt probably for doing it. But it's of no greater risk than standard acceptable risk for aviation. And for some reason, the drone industry seems to be under this thing where we have to be treated as a greater risk and a greater safety level than anything else that's expected for the rest of aviation.
Exactly.
That's the bit I'm confused about.
I've seen them firing frozen chickens into jet engines, but you can go to an airport with a frozen chicken and you won't get arrested.
That is true. I think I've got a sneaking suspicion that if you've got a lovely truck-mounted cannon with the frozen chicken loaded into it, that they might give you some funny looks.
Might, but no guarantees.
No guarantees. And there are no rules about turning up near airports with big, massive air cannons.
We're held to such a high level. We're held to such a high level, and you can never disprove something. You can only ever prove it. You can't, because you might fire 100 drones into 100 jet engines, and they might all just bounce off. But then they'll say, "Yeah, but the 101st one might damage it." Can you prove it won't? And you're going to fire another one. So you can't win these things. You've got to say, is it within an acceptable level of risk? And I think we've proven after 10 years, and with the very few number of actual collisions that have been documented, that, for example, the risk is very low because the probability is incredibly low. And that's one of the factors of risk. And so even if the consequences are medium, you have a very small probability, the overall risk is small.
Yeah. That last comment was good. The
balloons sightings.
The balloons comment is taking away heat from the drone industry. Yes, let's see more balloon sightings near airports now instead of drones. That'd be awesome for the rest of us. Like,
I'm going to build a drone balloon with a laser on it.
Exactly. Though speaking of lasers, I don't understand why we can't just put holes in these things with lasers, bring them down gently, and collect the evidence rather than blowing them all up. But that's
the
just
problem. Yeah, but the problem is even bullet holes. The Canadian Air Force fired 1,000 rounds into one of these balloons once and still didn't bring it down because at those altitudes, the pressure is incredibly low. Most of the gas is in the top of the envelope. Even if you punch holes in it, it leaks out so very slowly that it takes. But I mean, you just follow it. It's to fall on someone's head. You're good.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like you can't predict where it's going to land and clear an area.
Yeah, what appalls me most is the massive waste of helium. It's a really, really valuable element, and there's not a lot of it around. And this all going into space. We need more of it, not less.
Well, it could have been hydrogen.
No, then it would have gone big yellow flash, and all those anthrax spores wouldn't have come out.
So, thanks for joining us, Philip. What's happening we haven't heard from you. What's happening in the Q pilot world? I know. Please tell me on your desk you have your remote ID thing.
I can go get one. I think. Hang on.
Because you're just about to bring remote ID in the form of a module, aren't you?
Just like Luca did.
You're a compliant sort of fellow.
Yeah, we have 4 different modules, and
4.
Yeah, it's sort of a thing. And of course, I don't have a single one on my desk. I've got one in the conference.
Show us a married one. We don't care.
Yes.
All right. Well, anyway, but that's coming. That's coming. When are those? Are they going to be available by September 2023?
They're already in stores now. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the two little drone ID ones. One of them fits inside a Here 3 Plus, so you can actually mount it on the inside of a Here 3 Plus. And
so
the
that's
other one,
a GPS unit for those that don't know. So that's going inside the GPS unit.
Yeah. So it makes it nice and compact. And then we've got one we're about to release, which is just a software update for the HereLink, which adds drone ID capability to HereLink. And we've got the Here 4, which will be coming sometime in Q2 this year. Which has got.
Can I start with the HereLink update? So that's acceptable to the FAA, is it? Because can you not tamper with it?
So when it comes to tampering, it's about the OEM setting that up. So that's going to have to be something that comes from the OEM side. So that'll be how we set up an OEM image. So once a HereLink is declared an OEM HereLink, when you do firmware updates and all of that sort of stuff on it, it gets approved OEM firmware. So they'll have to go through the FAA and get their bit done. We don't do that. Like, we don't FAA things. That's their problem. We just make sure it's ready for it. So yes, it will be acceptable for that. But each one of those needs to sort of be approved on themselves. If you use the module version, there's no way in hell that FAA can stop people from being able to modify a module. I mean, unplug it. There you go. It's modified. Like, if someone wants to put fake ID out there, there's going to be fake ID. I mean, the whole system is so flawed. It's ridiculous. The only reason we're supplying this is because we have to. And we've put our price $39 for a serial linked unit and free for the HereLink. We're trying to make it as painless as possible for our users, because I totally disagreed that the thing exists in the first place. There's not drone ID on cars, or, car ID. I mean, okay, there's number plates. You can cover a number plate with a dirty sticker and get away with it. Like, it's not this built-in radio tracking system that can monitor your every move. Yes, you've got a number plate on there, but people aren't tracking that. In some places they are, but yeah.
Kevin's analogy was good with that when it first came out. He says it's not like if you've got a Lamborghini and you've got it in your garage, it's getting pinged out, I've got a Lamborghini in my garage, which is essentially what you do with a drone. Because if you even firmware updating your drone, certainly with the DJI, with the Aeroscope, that's transmitting and saying it's there. So it is more invasive than
it's far more invasive. I totally disagree with it. I think it's a stupid idea. The one benefit of the modules we're doing is with future software updates, they'll work as a telemetry module. And so, once Drone ID sort of gets cancelled, you'll be able to repurpose them as telemetry modules. So that'll be handy.
Well, Drone ID will be replaced with network remote ID, won't it? So those modules will be worthless.
Not really, because network remote ID will work on anything that has Wi-Fi connected to your phone or whatever. So, it'll work. And the other thing is, we've got Drone Share that we're doing at the moment. We've just added ADS-B to Drone Share. So anyone with a Cube with ADS-B carrier board will be able to hook that on live, and any aircraft around them will pop up, and we'll start trying to get a bit of a network going on that, as some of these other ADS-B things are starting to delay information because Elon got upset. So
if I wanted to just be a receiver for Drone Share, then what?
Yep.
How do I do that? Just to be a.
You plug your carrier board in, like the nice new made in India version.
Oh, okay, light blue. Okay,
light blue for made in India. So we're just about to start manufacturing in India. There you go. There's a scoop for you.
No cows were harmed in the making of that product.
That is correct. And yeah, so you just plug this into any old computer that's basically hooked to the net, and so
And
I would suggest a
that'll
pie,
work.
but you know.
Sorry, saying it. Well, so yeah. Well, I've got a see. Look, Bruce, I've got a Raspberry Pi just sat here.
I've got 4 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got the same dongle as you as well somewhere. But anyway, so there's no Pi-based sort of plug it, set and forget system.
Well, yeah. I mean, at the moment we base it on Mission Planner, but Mission Planner runs on a Pi, so you know, yeah. I'm sure that we'll have little images that people can grab. Hey.
That's not true. That's not true. They gave the contract to ANRA to aggregate the data. That's not true, SF Drone School. And the FAA's already handed out the contract for that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
The contract already exists, and the information's public, and we're going to track it. So, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it is relatively low range, but it's not.
It's low range, sort of. It's 5 to 12 kilometers that you'll be able to pick this stuff up. So if you're talking about a city, you only need a few
things on a roof,
receiving it that will be able to pick up all of this stuff, and then we're going to aggregate it through our servers that are Western servers and around the world, and there we go.
Even better, all the Karens will have that.
You're going to aggregate the RID transmissions and the ADSB stuff.
Yeah.
And then are you going to make those RID transmissions visible, including the pilot's location?
Exactly. I think it's a terrible idea.
There's a money-making option here. There's money to be made. You should start KarenNet and then charge drone pilots to opt out.
Oh, yeah. No, we're going to make it. We're basically going to, I don't know if you've had a look at Drone ID, but Drone Share, but we've got paid subscriptions there now. But we are definitely going to have freebies for people who put data in. So that'll encourage people to put the data in, and we'll go from there.
All you need is an app on your phone, connected through the cellular network, and everyone can be a part of the network, which gives you massive coverage.
Jobbing in your neighbours. I mean, the Stasi. I mean, the police are going to love it. Yeah.
Well, yet again, the trouble is we are all on the same page with this, and we had a very nice chap on last week who explained his reasoning for why he started his company, and good on him. He's making RID devices, but that wasn't his original idea. It wasn't his journey to create this device that would transmit people's location. But it just feels like there's been zero. Well, it was dismissed in America, wasn't it? It was dismissed as it's not encroaching your personal freedoms or something like that.
It's a massive breach of privacy. Bill of Rights or no Bill of Rights, I think. I can't understand how it's got through in America. I can't believe the NRA, to be honest, hasn't actually joined the drone fight. Except that they're probably the same people wanting to shoot the drones down.
We should start putting guns on drones. Get an ally.
Exactly. That really worked for Austin back in the day, didn't it?
Yes, yes, it did. Hacking and pranking are really just going to be huge. It's not. Yeah, it is. It's a point that it's pointless before it leaves the gate. Really, it really is. And if it increased air safety, which it doesn't, I'd be happy with it.
But they said it was security. It was the DHS pushed this through for national security reasons.
The position of the operator being that absolutely shouldn't be put out.
Oh, no. The FAA, Kevin from the FAA said, look, just call the police. Just find another phone because yours has been stolen and wipe the blood off it and call the police. That solves the problem.
Yeah. So just to be clear,
it's just this again, common sense. Just hit him. I just don't understand why this wasn't done. Instead of stick, it was carrot as well. If you say put remote ID on your drone, and we'll give you this set of regulations that are far more flexible.
But they did. They said remote ID will enable BVLOS operations. That was the carrot. And then they said, but not for recreational flights.
Yeah, no, I don't think any recreational users typically want BVLOS. Anyway, that to me should always be commercial side and that anyway. Just there'd be too much. There'd be too much pushback for even that as a concept. But I think just generally, lesser distances. We can see you transmitting that you've got a 249-gram drone. We know not to get hysterical about it because you're giving that information so that everyone knows. We don't want to get hysterical. This is a tiny drone that's going to do no damage. Everyone kind of benefits. So I just think
drone ID being used in a way like I go out to a job. It's a professional job. I purposefully turn on drone ID for that reason, so that police can identify who I am. I'm doing a legitimate thing. They're looking for dodgy drones. It might be a restricted airspace. It might be, I don't know, NFL halftime show. And I'm the poor sucker that's on the drones actually inspecting the thing or doing the thing or doing security. Sure, drone ID would be great right there, so you don't get blasted out of the sky with some dodgy drone shield gun. I know it's not going to work. They don't work.
Exactly.
But,
Hang on. Let me design a new one. I've got 2 bits of foam. Here we are.
It's not going to be big.
Use a soldering iron.
No.
There we are. I've made another
hat next to the hat behind you. Well, isn't that a big baggy or something?
Isn't that a what?
What's on the
on an antenna on the hat behind you on the shelf?
Yeah.
Oh no, that's
a
Yoda lightsaber.
Yeah.
No, the hat. Yeah. What band is that hat operating on?
That hat, that's an HF hat. That's on HF.
Okay.
It's a very old hat, that one.
Does that have foil on
No,
it?
I don't know. I've got a bit of tat here. Look, there's this bit of tat on here.
There's show and tell.
There.
Nice.
Yeah.
See, the gold is it reflects lasers. So when they come
lasers. Yeah, no. All of it's a nonsense. But just to quickly loop back round, you said you were planning on a free option as well as the $35 dongle option. So is the free option built into the carrier board?
No, the free option is with HearLink. So
sorry,
free. It's lots of money in the US dollars and even more in any of ours. But it's free if you've already paid that. So yeah.
I've still got that gyrocopter. I love them too much. I've had several of them and I crash them consistently when I'm flying them. So I'm leaving that one. They do that awful roll-in thing that they do. Well, when you're flying badly, like I do. But no, I do like.
Sorry to jump in there.
Go on.
I just wanted to ask about before I forget, because obviously the UK hasn't introduced remote ID yet, but we know we've got the consultants to look at it. Now, given this work's already being done, in that there's a solution there that works, that could be just taken. But the question I would ask is, can that solution be used, the technology that's there, but in a more common sense way, or is it you're kind of stuck with it being as universally bad now as it is? If that makes sense.
I mean, overall, there are definitely circumstances where I think drone ID is very important. I mean, I think once you get outside of your backyard, maybe above 50 foot or something like that. I mean, give us a height. Above that, yeah, okay, you need to start spitting out drone ID, so that the Amazon couriers or whoever's actually going to really do it, like Swoop or some of these others, they can detect you and not crash into you. There can definitely be some two-way comms and things like that where that can be very useful. But I think the problem is they've come at it from the point of view of, you guys are all bad. We're going to enforce this, that, and the other, and we're going to treat you like criminals. I mean, I'm in Australia. We're used to that, but it's not really cool. And unfortunately, not wanting to sound like an anti-vax freedom fighter, but there is a definite degradation of freedoms in the West disappearing, and we're just openly accepting it. And it doesn't matter whether you're a left wing, right wing, whatever. People are just getting a little bit lax on. Yeah, okay, it's only one more rule. It only affects them. It's not my problem. I don't know if you guys have watched Clarkson's Farm #2. Don't want to give away.
It's already been mentioned.
But
Yeah, the
I
council.
I don't yet, but yeah.
It needs to be mandatory viewing for anyone who's going to be in a government organisation or anything like that. You are making people's lives miserable. You are restricting trade. You are destroying industries. Like, you know, what they have done, what they've done to Clarkson. And yeah, he was in the position. He could have afforded the $500,000 to take it to the next level. The reason he didn't is he's trying to represent farmers, so they don't have that. So he didn't. He found a lovely loophole and milked it. And that's probably only worked for a week. I mean, I don't know what the follow-up on that is, but idiot bureaucrats that have brilliant ideas that want to take away freedoms, it's not a good thing. And RID is just one more step in a bad direction.
As they say, what's the good of power if you can't abuse it? And as one of the councillors in our local council said to me, Bruce, you have some great ideas, but because it's you, we're not listening. And that's the attitude. These people put their own personal petulance and things ahead of their jobs and the reasons that they were elected to perform these tasks or employed to perform these tasks. And it's endemic. And this whole bureaucratic system makes it very hard because, as I was saying earlier, if you try and use systems, the systems that are put in place for representation and consultation, they're geared to work against you. The people who make these are the bureaucrats. So they make sure these systems are crafted to give them the upper hand. And as I said before, they're required by law to consult, but they're not required by law to listen. And these things just work against you. We have to be very smart in the way we deal with it. But one thing I've noticed, and this just may be me being old, my kids have a much greater tolerance of having their freedoms taken than I do. Children today, or young people today, not children, but young people seem to accept the fact that, we're happy to give up that freedom because there's some potential benefit further down the track. They don't realize what they're doing.
Yeah, they're being the greater good is used on a regular basis.
The greater good.
So, Philip, I guess I want to play my thing more specific, having thought about it. What I wanted to get at was the issue at the moment, remote ID, for most people, I mean, the core issue is the fact you're giving your pilot's position to anybody, and it's the fact it goes to an INVI and then it's bothered from it. And there's also other scenarios, you could literally get your gear robbed. They just know, they could just look for high value drones. No, you've probably got some high value camera gear and whatever else there. There'd be more. That would be a more higher value robbery than doing a post office potentially. So it's just thinking that there are scenarios around it that will concern me. And I guess you could take the technology that's there, so you don't have to invest in new technology, and you could just suppress giving out the pilot's position with that's there. And even you could have a situation, I guess, where there could be some security token that's passed that says, I'm law enforcement, give me the pilot's position, so that it would still be used for the police, but it wouldn't be that anyone could use it. I take it that could be done all with the hardware that's there and even the software that's done with the tweaks, so it doesn't have to be reinventing the wheel at a huge cost.
Yeah, it's I actually think the system's going to be well and truly spoofed and abused. I think the likes of what we keep blaming Kevin, but technically it's not Kevin.
No, just blame Kevin. Yeah.
Kevin's group did with the balloons and the stuff. This is going to be even easier because it's a completely open protocol that is completely detailed as to how it is. You're not spoofing. Yeah. It's not spoofing. It's real. You're telling people you're identifying where you've let these balloons off for the safety of everyone.
And you only need an app on your phone. Walk around everywhere you go with an app on your phone, and you're 50 drones all over the place.
You are completely wrong. You are completely wrong. Because most Android phones can't do the Wi-Fi thing properly, and most iPhone things can't do the Bluetooth thing properly.
Two versions.
It's the other way around. I can't remember. So most people are going to look up and say, oh, that guy's breaking the law. His RID's not working, but really it's just because their phone's crappy. So the system's flawed day one.
Let's not forget that when the FAA, and they quickly swept it under the rug, they asked Google and Apple to put better spec GPSs on mobile phones because the spec they originally released, it was impossible for a mobile phone
The-
to ever be compliant, and it was in the Z, wasn't it? It was the Z that was wrong. And yeah,
So the whole reason we're doing the Here 4 GPS is because of the way they've written the specs on the drone ID. There's extra hurdles to go over unless you use this stupid spec. So the good thing for everyone is Here 4 is going to be freaking awesome. It's a quad band multi-frequency quad band RTK GPS that's now going to replace the Here 3 Plus. It's awesome. Like uBlocks is releasing a whole new module for us to actually bring things up to the spec we need for it. So if there's any positive of remote ID, we're getting better GPSs for cheaper. So there's a positive.
well done. That's a good thing to good for you. So what about in the actual auto flight controller world? What's new in coming out of your place? Your Skunk Works. So we've seen the Indian one. That was a reveal. So you're making in India for the Made in India campaign that they've got there. Which
Make in India is a load of bull crap.
Okay.
And we're not interested in that whatsoever. Make in India is basically to sucker in massive big companies to still import everything and call it Make in India because they've met some quota of number of local staff. Look, it's a great marketing campaign, but that's what it is. There will be we have some Indians as part of our community who will be actually owning and running a qPilot branch in India, which will actually be a proper local branch, and we will be actually manufacturing in India. So no cutting corners on this.
Not connected with that at all then, because that thing has been a terrible
It's a disaster.
Well, yeah, with Indian celebrities endorsing things plainly made or plainly available from Alibaba.
And I mean,
that Carl's here. He's been lurking. Carl has some strong opinions on that. Awesome, nice to see you, Carl. So will that make it easier to move the autopilot units around India and surrounding countries? Will that leap?
Not really. It's more about we just have that level of interest from India that they want to do that. They want more stuff done, and the right people are there to make that happen. There's always different requirements in different countries of doing things slightly differently as well, and it gives us that flexibility to do that. So by the end of this year, we'll be manufacturing in 4 countries. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, good for you. And then what else can we expect? What other exciting things are coming? That's the red one, is it?
That's red. Red's being officially released at the Avalon Air Show. So there's already one of them out in the wild over at Kraus Samani Aerospace.
And the benefit is it doesn't show the blood.
It doesn't show the blood.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And and what is the benefit of that? Why?
It's a
tube red. So what's another color?
Yeah, it's a fully redundant autopilot. So there's no putting extra IMUs on and pretending the whole thing's redundant. This is got 4 processors on board, 5 IMUs, 3 barometers, 1 mag because mags suck anyway, and yeah, it's pretty cool. So it's a bit of a shift for how ArduPilot works and everything as well. It's already in ArduPilot Master, and that's a testament to the work of Sid and Tridge and all of them to make bringing up new hardware a lot easier. We got the hardware and it was ready to fly in a week. So yeah.
I'll let you. Andrew can ask you that.
One thing before you go into the Harrier thing, just with the red there. When you said mag suck, what you mean is the GPS unit's got the mag in it, and that's the one you really should be using rather than one in the flight controller. Yeah. And also, if you can avoid using that one as well, avoid it. Now that we have proper differential GPS magnetometers working, which are not magnetometers, heading reference systems,
then it's far better. You're not affected by magnetism. Like if you're doing shipboard operations and things like that, the fact that you're taking off on a big steel thing or you're taking off on rebar in the ground or whatever, the GPS system just works really well for that.
So that solved it. So is that like a combined hardware and software?
Two
solution?
GPS, yeah.
Two accurate RTK GPSs that they don't need a base station as such because they're RTKing relative to each other, and they get an accurate position relative to each other, and you can work out heading from that. If you have 3, you can work out attitude as well. So that's pretty cool.
Cool.
You're right, Squishy. You're right.
But yeah,
You're right.
There was a question about your Harrier jump jet, I think.
Absolutely, that is 100% correct. The reason I got into autopilots is because I shake something chronic. Of course, I put my hand up and it doesn't shake, but normally they do. I put my finger on the sticks and it looks like I'm trying to do an aerobatics routine.
That must be terrible.
It is terrible.
Says the man with Parkinson's.
Yeah. So basically, the autopilot allows me to fly as if I know what I'm doing, and that's what got me into autopilots in the first place. And accidentally sort of did this. Yeah.
And the Harrier? How's the Harrier?
Harrier, I haven't worked on the Harrier for many years now, but the team that are on the Harrier are doing well. I think we're sort of talking about 99.8% ready for flight on the Sea Harrier. The T4 that I was originally working on is going to be a potentially taxiable museum piece, but it will never fly, unfortunately. We were really hoping to be able to get that one to fly because obviously it's got the back seat, which would allow, people like me to get in a Harrier and go for a fly with a proper pilot. The biggest hiccup to get flight is Australian rules and regulations on ejector seats. They are explosives, they are rockets, they have to be kept under certain conditions and security and blah, 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 blah. And convincing Martin Baker to actually service the seat for a civilian aircraft is really hard these days. And a Harrier is not the sort of aircraft you really want to be in without a seat. So that's really probably the biggest hiccup at the moment. We have a
snowflakes, bloody snowflakes.
Yeah, exactly. We have a very experienced pilot who has flown Harriers a fair bit. He's the only Australian, or one of the only Australian Air Force pilots who has cross-trained and flew with the Navy. He flew an air show back in 1988 in Australia, and officially it's not called an air show because it was unsanctioned, sort of semi, but and sanctioned at the same time. That's anyway. Both Air Force and Navy approved it, but still got approved for all the.
And you've got your big show at Avalon coming up. Are you going to be at Avalon?
Yeah, we've got our. I'll show you our booth. Here's a sneak peek. But we've got our backdrop for our booth hanging.
Ah, yes.
Yes. Anyway, that's it.
And are you going to have lots of your air? Because you made up systems for air cadets over there, didn't you?
We do. That's I've got one of those right here, actually.
So that would be what some of us would call the future of aviation that regulators around the world are trying to stop happening. So air squadrons in Australia get one. How do they get one of those? They call you, you send it to them with a load of stuff. Or do they got a program? Or they?
It was actually a program done by the cadets themselves. Like it wasn't something that industry did. They did it, and they did that through a company called JAR Aerospace. Unfortunately, JAR Aerospace they're not doing it anymore, which sort of sucks. But yeah, it's one of those things where there is a lot of interest, but to make it commercially viable is challenging.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's a shame. That's a shame. What other news have you got? Because I'll put it on. I've got to go to sleep. I'm so tired.
That's probably about it from us at the moment. We've got the ArduPilot Developers Conference coming up a month after the air show. We've got a bunch of people coming over that are coming down to Geelong to visit us first, which is sort of cool. So call out
And
to
what
anyone.
movies are you showing then? What movies are you showing when they're coming down?
I don't know. We've got a cinema.
I know you have, exactly. That's what I'm saying. What's the point of having a cinema if you're not going to have bloody movies showing? That seems ridiculous to me.
Well, clearly Top Gun and Top Gun 2.
You see it.
And the latest Mission Impossible, because that's got cubes in it.
And it was filmed here, and Tom Cruise stayed just about 10 kilometers over there, and his helicopter was over here all the time. He was here for 3 months. So yeah.
And the team that actually did all the drone flying for that is XM2, which are a QPilot reseller here in Melbourne. They did filming for that one, and the Shot Over did a bunch of the filming on Top Gun, and then they've contacted us wanting upgrades on some of their gear for moving from black to orange stuff in between movies.
In that, is it in the latest one where he goes off on the motorbike stunt that you can just about see the hair antenna?
Well, in the final one, obviously he doesn't have that on him, because by that stage, if he's wrong, he's wrong. That's just bad luck. We don't want to waste equipment as he splats. But so all the practice ones, he had that, so they could just predict exactly where he was going to land each time to keep the helicopters and the drones and everything in safe zones around him, and to make sure that everything fell the way it was meant to and all that sort of stuff. So everything became very predictable after that. Ironically, they used original HERE Pluses, like they were old equipment that they had on there. But anyway, so we've offered them a bit of an update on some gear, so that we can, if we're going to strap things to the back of Tom Cruise's head, at least make it the current model for a bit of a promo. But
You didn't see that coming, did you, when you started down this path? You did not see that Tom Cruise would have one of your GPSs on his back.
I got into this. I started using ArduPilot stuff because Angus Pert told me not to use OpenPilot because he was having a spat with David Angus. And so he said, put an ArduPilot thing on it, because literally my hands were too shaky to actually control the thing, and I wanted to get back into it. That's what got me back into it. So
yes, OpenPilot. There you go, on the desk. David Angus, is he still with us?
No idea.
Yeah, he wasn't very well, was he? But he was another controversial chap. That's for sure.
He was.
That's for sure. And on that note, going once, going twice. Is anyone else got anything else? Okay, that's it. I've got to go to bed. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, wherever you are in the world, look after yourselves. Let's all convene again at 2100 GMT next week, when the nice man from Assure is going to tell us all about chucking drones through engines. That is going to be an interesting one. Things that are happening around the world, we need to have some things to say to regulators. Hey, are you sure? Look at this. Here's the data, because they're running without the data. And Bruce has always gone on about where are the risk assessments, and he's not wrong. He's not wrong at all. Again, pains me to say Bruce isn't wrong, but he's not wrong. So, dear viewer, take care. Look after yourselves. We'll see you again, 21 next week. Bye-bye.